babies are born with XY or XX chromosome. And except for a very small group who have ambiguous genitalia, and let's put them aside for a second, these will grow up to be men or women. And men wear trousers and women wear dresses. Now, you know, of course, that is completely societal. In Indonesia, men wear sarongs. In Scotland, men wear kilts, and in America, women wear jeans. But height, how tall someone is, seems completely biological. In America, as in I think all countries, men are taller on average than women. But there's a bell curve, right? We have. Sorry, I can't see my fingers. It's a bell curve, and so if I said I have an individual who is 5'6" and or 7, somewhere between 5'6" and 7, is that individual a male or a female? You would have difficulty because that's somewhere where the bell curves touch, and so half of men are smaller than 5'9", and half of women are taller than 5'4". My wife, by the way, is 6'1", so she's on the very tail end of that spectrum. Now, let's go back 100,000 years so we can be in good prehistory caveman days. And look at Homo sapiens. Now, Homo sapiens there have a 1-0 element about them. So again, the height is not 1 and 0, it's a continuum. But the 1-0 element, of course, is sexual procreation. So men simply inject sperm. Women carry the fetus for 9 months, and then after a difficult delivery that may end in death, will suckle the baby for another couple of years. Now, men do one thing, women do another thing. Now, it's not that simple, because even 100,000 years ago, I'm going to presume that there's going to be some society that will impose certain rules, certain norms on men and women. But the combination of the strength and height on average of men and their sexual reproduction habits makes me think that the brains of men and women will be different, not 1 and 0, of course, because here's the problem. Brains are so complicated, unlike height, where there's one line. Imagine now not just one line, but 1,000 lines, all from one point, and each line has a different thing. So when we look at male brains and female brains, they'll be like dots with thousands of little strings attached to wherever they are, and they'll look, when you go deep in, when you look at a certain brain, you might find it difficult to know, is this a woman or is this a man, like our 5'7" person. But when you back off and you look at the population as a whole, men are more violent than women. Now, even violence has many aspects to it, right? Violence is not one thing. I'm sure it's 100 things, 1,000 genes connect to that. And why are men more violent? I don't know, but I'm going to guess it's a nature thing and not a nurture thing. Though, of course, society will regulate how that violence comes out. To take, for example, now let's go back 100 years to my favorite Victorian gentleman, Teddy Roosevelt. Now, I argue this, and people get unhappy when I argue this, but I believe that once you strip all society off of men, that men are a murderous, raping lot. That's who we are underneath all this society and civilization. And when you look at Teddy Roosevelt, you would know that. He's dressed nicely. He treats women nicely. The rhinoceroses and elephants will tell you, and bears will tell you a different thing about his violence. And of course, when he was out west, he got into some fisticuffs, and when he was in the Spanish-American War, he had some violence. But Teddy Roosevelt has been shaped by his society. Societies that do tremendous amount of shaping. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying, think about this for a second. Let's go 1,000 years into the future. Let us pretend 1,000 years into the future we have figured out, not only have we figured out, but we have decided this is how it's going to be. Not just, we don't just fertilize eggs outside of human bodies, but we actually develop embryos and bring them to life. We will not use women's bodies for reproduction anymore. We simply will, like the man, she will simply give us an egg, a sperm, boom, all the rest happens outside of humans. So now, think about this, 1,000 years from now, there is absolutely no difference between how men and women reproduce, the sexual part of men and women, zero of sexual reproductive, zero. They're the same. Now, give it another 1,000 years just so society can catch up with that. So for 1,000 years, men and women have not been having children inside women. But outside women, we don't have mothers and fathers anymore. Now we have, I don't know, nurseries and such. I still think in 2,000 years that men will be more violent than women because of that. We're hardwired. Evolution has hardwired us that way, and evolution doesn't change that much in 2,000 years, or 3,000 years, or 4,000 years. 100,000 years, I don't know. It tends to be in the millions. I don't know. The human brain, though, I can imagine some changes within a couple of 100,000 years or 50,000 years, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough about this. I don't think scientists know enough about this. But my hypothesis is that men and women are different, not 1-0, they are in sexual reproduction 1-0, but on a continuum, that men are more violent, women are more nurturing. Now, does this mean that women cannot be generals? No, of course. We just had our first woman general. Women can, there are women who can be violent and can be good generals and army folk. Can males be elementary school teachers? I was an elementary school teacher when I first started. I'm probably more nurturing than the next guy. I'm not particularly nurturing anymore. I don't know, maybe I am. But the question then becomes, and this is what we will discuss, of course, next time. This is just a setup for that. Is there a reason why people should have to stay men and women? Is there a reason to distinguish men from women and ask men and women not to be changing? Or is the change from men to women okay? is this whole transgender thing good or bad? That's next time we meet.